3 a.m. in Afghanistan, the shocking truth about what we encountered that haunts us today. The clock struck 3, an hour that felt heavy with dread. Rustling night winds whispered through the barren hills of Afghanistan, shrouding them in a cloak of darkness. Soldiers whispered among themselves, their eyes darting around, searching for shadows that lurked just out of sight. They were here, entrenched in conflict, surrounded by enough uncertainty to send chills down anyone's spine. Even their flashlights seemed hesitant to penetrate the blackness that pressed in on all sides. Then came the first strange sight. A flicker on the horizon. Was it fire or mirage? Reluctantly, they crept toward it, hearts pounding, hands gripping rifles so tightly knuckles turned white. As the flash of light grew closer, it twisted into bizarre shapes almost as if the darkness itself was bending. The soldiers weren't prepared for the shimmering figures they were about to witness. Whispers erupted from their ranks. What the hell is that? They could feel the chill creeping in, not just from the wind, but something deeper, something primal. Tension thickened like fog. They were made aware of an unsettling truth that night. There were noises, too. Odd sounds echoed from the mountains. Low growls intertwined with soft, eerie hums, creating a harmony that sank like a stone in their guts. No animal, no human could create such a symphony of grotesque beauty and unease. With each note, fear layered atop courage, and every soldier's throat tightened. They thought they were wandering into a war zone, yet they were stumbling into a nightmare. Suddenly, the flickering light morphed into an immense ball of flame. Some soldiers gaped, while others fell to their knees. A parade of ethereal forms surfaced, moving in time to the haunting musicality of the night. Ghost-like outlines, shimmering and spooky, sent ripples of fear through the ranks. Were they witnessing the spirits of the fallen? Or something that should never have existed? As hearts raced and breaths quickened, one soldier shouted, "We need to go." Panic ignited, but another voice broke through, calm and steady, cutting through the chaos. "Wait. We have to see what this is." Why the urge to stay? The ground felt like it trembled beneath their feet, each pulse echoing a warning. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up." Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The air thickened again when a bone-chilling wail escaped the collective that surrounded them. A sound that felt as if it clawed at their insides, ripping away the thin veil of bravery they clutched so tightly. And yet, a flicker of hope fought through the fear. It was a reminder that in the midst of chaos, camaraderie held them together. But before they could seize that moment, darkness swallowed it whole, deepening their dread. Was this an omen or a warning? The night was still far from over, and with it came the age-old question: would they escape with their lives, or would this haunting revelation consume them forever? The tension was unbearable. Soldiers stood frozen in place, as the eerie chorus of the wailing grew louder, shaking their resolve. The flickering light was mesmerizing, luring them closer even as every instinct screamed for retreat. They could feel the pull, a magnetic force weaving through the air, binding them to that surreal display before their eyes. "Did you see that?" A young private named Ellis whispered, clutching his rifle like a lifeline. His voice trembled, thick with disbelief. "What are we even looking at?" "I don't know, but I want to know," responded Sergeant Moreno, his eyes glued to the spectacle. His voice carried an unsettling mix of fear and fascination. "Stay low and move in, but be ready for anything." They edged forward, hearts racing, each step louder than the last. The light pulsated with a rhythm that synced with their pounding hearts. It cast eerie shadows, twisted shapes danced on the ground, taunting their every move. Panic threatened to grip them, but fascination kept them anchored. Suddenly, the growling sounds from the mountains intensified, all around them. It felt like the earth beneath them was alive, shaking with an energy that both terrified and enthralled. The soldiers exchanged nervous glances, gripping their rifles tighter, each man weighing the stakes of curiosity against the primal urge to flee, and then it happened, a surge, like electricity jolting through the air. The ghosts lit up, clearer now than ever. They spun around, their forms becoming almost human, yet far from it. Faces twisted in silent screams, eyes wide with terror, they hovered barely a foot from the ground. One figure reached out, a hand shimmering like vapors dissipating along with light. It beckoned them, an invitation that felt like a curse. "Get back!" screamed Corporal Hayes. He stumbled backward, tripping over his own feet. The calm assurance was gone, only raw fear remained. "They're not here to guide us." Moreno squared his shoulders, gritting his teeth. "We can't turn back now. Whatever this is, it has a story." The glowing figures seemed to vibrate with emotion, as if they were trapped in a loop of despair. The wails echoed, mingling with memories of battles fought long ago, of brothers lost and promises broken. Each soldier's heart weighed heavy with the burdens of their own pasts, clashing with the spirits before them. Who were these entities? Were they a warning from a world beyond, or simply echoes of those lost to the ravages of war? The questions swirled, competing with the gnawing fear lodged deep within their guts. "Look!" Ellis pointed, voice rising in alarm, "They're circling us." A low hum pierced the air, overlapping with the wails, and the figures grew agonizingly close. They were moving with purpose, almost as if they were trying to communicate. A ripple of urgency coursed through the soldiers. Were they summoned for a reason, or were they merely the echoes of spirits forever lost to conflict? The darkness felt different now, it coiled around them like a predator. The soldiers exchanged frantic looks, uncertainty washing over them like a torrential wave. The music of the night took a turn, shifting to a discordant tone that sent shivers down their spines. Fight or flee? The question lingered like fog in their minds. They had only moments to decide. The figures continued their haunting performance, pulling tighter on the threads of their fear. Was this an omen, or a chance to glean insight into the insanity of their existence? With breath held and hearts pounding, they prepared to either confront or escape the unknown. The fork lay before them, glimpse a truth once lost, or let the darkness pull them into its abyss, and just as they made their choice, the earth shook violently beneath them, a deafening crack like thunder echoing in the night. An ancient presence spoke through the storm, a voice that rattled their bones. Choose. What did it mean? Would they even understand? The truth awaited them, but would they be ready for what lay ahead? The ground continued to shake, a rumble that felt like the heartbeat of the world itself. Moreno steadied himself, an anchor amidst the chaos, gripping his rifle tightly. "We have to decide," he shouted, his voice barely piercing through the cacophony of wails and trembling earth. Ellis, still caught in the spiraling grip of fear, looked at his comrades, eyes wide. "What if they're here to warn us about something?" he whispered, his voice shaking. "What if we need to listen? Or it could be a trap." Corporal Hayes countered, his breath quickening. "A sick joke from whatever those things are." The tension crackled in the air like static, each soldier feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on their chests. As if sensing their indecision, the glowing figures shifted, drawing nearer, their expressions a mix of sorrow and fury. The wailing crescendoed, filling their ears, drowning out everything but the sharp rush of adrenaline in their veins. It felt like the veil between the living and the dead was wearing thin, and every soldier felt their own past clawing back at them. "Look!" Moreno shouted, gesturing to a specter that hovered inches away. It seemed to pulse with light, and within its luminous frame, images flickered, brief snatches of memories. A battlefield, a crumpled flag, the face of a fallen friend. The scene played out, heartbreak woven into every flash. I know that place." Ellis stammered, recognition dawning on his face. "That was the old outpost. Johnson," the words hung heavily, the grief palpable in the air, binding them to that singular moment. Are they trying to tell us something? Hayes mused, his brows knitted in deep concentration, inspired by Ellis's reaction. The darkness thrummed with energy, the faint whispers mingling with their thoughts, pulling at threads of guilt long buried, but just then, the ground heaved again, a violent tremor snapping them back to reality. Hayes was thrown off balance, stumbling next to Moreno, who grabbed his arm to steady him. Everything felt alive, like the earth was emanating a breath of warning, urging them forward, or was it backward? Keep it together. Moreno barked. He was trying to lead them, but his heart raced with uncertainty. Suddenly, a shadow emerged from the chaos. A beast, dark and contorted, surged from the depths, its eyes burning with an otherworldly glow. It towered above them, snarling as it scanned the soldiers with a malevolence that summoned their deepest fears. "No!" Ellis cried out, the cry ripped from his throat as the coils of desperation wrapped around him. "We need to choose now. Fight or run," shouted Hayes. The decision weighed on all of them like lead. The phantoms floated closer, almost shielding them from the monster, but as they did, the cries grew louder, more frantic. Moreno took a deep breath, feeling the inevitable pull of fate urging him forward. "We're not going to let fear decide for us," he yelled back, huskily. "We either face this or get consumed by it." As they stood their ground, the shadows crept in, the figure beside them gesturing, beckoning, then suddenly freezing, its form shimmering, revealing an anguished visage that seemed to echo their collective sorrows. The beast lunged, a primal, terrible roar shaking the air, and the soldiers braced for impact. And then, just when it seemed the very fabric of their reality would tear apart, the earth stilled, silence enveloping the chaos. "Choose," came that voice again, lingering in the night like a ghostly whisper, heavy with ominous meaning. What awaited beyond that choice? Would they confront their fears together or be torn apart by the darkness threatening to envelop them? Clarity or chaos? The moment teetered on the edge, waiting for their courage to decide the fate that lay ahead, a fate more fragile than they could ever imagine. And then they heard it, the faint sound of footsteps coming from behind. It was light at their backs, and it only brought more questions. Who could join them now in this madness? Had their choices doomed them, or was salvation closer than they thought? The footsteps grew louder, echoing against the trembling earth. It was a steady cadence, distinct from the chaos surrounding them. Moreno turned abruptly, heart pounding in his chest. Shadows danced across the ground, and a figure emerged from the darkness, illuminated in stark contrast to the looming beast before them. "Captain Rivera!" Ellis shouted, his voice strangled with a mix of hope and dread. Rivera appeared worn but resolute. The fatigue etched across his face told stories of ghosts he, too, had faced. "I came looking for you," he gasped, his eyes darting toward the monstrous creature behind them. "What happened here?" "Choices," Moreno replied, clenching his jaw. "We have to decide. Fight or flee." The beast snarled with renewed fury, sensing the shift in their focus. It lunged forward, eyes blazing like burning coals. Rivera steeled himself, his stance reflecting the weight of 100 battles. "Hold steady. We face this together," Rivera bellowed, rallying the soldiers. "No more running." The specters surged forward, circling the group, their wails transformed into a haunting choir, an eerie melody resonating with pain and loss. It felt as if the tortured souls were summoning every ounce of strength they had left, urging these men to embrace their shared memories. Moreno aimed his rifle at the advancing creature, adrenaline coursing through him. "If we do this, we do it united. Remember what we've lost." The memories surged to the forefront of their minds, their comrades, the laughter shared around a campfire, and the faces forever etched in their hearts. The weight of their collective grief melded into an unbreakable bond, and together they braced for the impending assault. The beast charged, the air thick with tension as it bore down on them. Moreno's heart raced, the primal instinct to protect flooding through him. He could feel the phantoms weaving around them, zipping in and out of focus. They were not just lost souls, they were reminders of what it meant to be brave in the face of despair. Now! Rivera shouted, and at that moment, the soldiers unleashed a barrage of firepower. Bullets tore through the night air, illuminating the shadows that clung to the beast's form. The creature howled in agony, a sound that shook the very ground beneath them. But it was not enough. It shuddered and turned, charging once again. The soldiers dodged instinctively, weaving between the specters that flickered like dying embers. Ellis felt a surge of defiance. We can't give up. Fight for them. Fight for us. He threw his rifle to the ground, dropping to the earth, hands raised as if in surrender. We need to listen to their voices. Help them guide us. The moment hung in the air, the murmurs grew louder, the realization dawning on them. The glowing phantoms shifted, enveloping Ellis as if pulling him into their chorus of despair and wisdom. A blinding light erupted, illuminating the battlefield and confronting the darkness, and then, silence fell. As the illumination faded, the beast froze in place, staring at Ellis, who now stood at the center of the radiant glow. What had he become? What do they know that he does not? The air crackled with impending revelation. Then a chilling realization swept over them. The ground trembled once more, but this time not with anger, it was reverent, almost eternal. Ellis Rivera called hesitantly, as the started specters coalesced, the labyrinth of souls revealing something unseen. A familiar face appeared in the light, a figure taken too soon from them. It was Johnson, his eyes filled with sorrow yet holding a flicker of hope, an unwavering connection reaching out to them. Fight the darkness, he mouthed, his voice echoing softly in the silence. The soldiers stood paralyzed beneath the weight of this truth. They were not just fighting for survival, they were bearing the weight of their pasts, and their future hung in the balance. Could they grasp onto that hope? Or would they let despair consume them once again? What are we meant to do? Hayes whispered, desperation creeping into his tone, realizing the significance of their choice in this moment. The phantoms waited, their silent resolve urging them on. And as the tension coiled tighter, each heartbeat echoed with a question only they could answer. Would they embrace the light, or would they remain shackled to the shadows? The silence stretched like a taut wire, making every heartbeat a drumbeat of impending doom. Ellis blinked, caught in the center of an otherworldly glow, as the faces of his lost friends shimmered in front of him, tethered to the spectral realm. The beast roared again, displacing the eerie calm, shattering the moment like glass. Ellis! Moreno shouted, scrambling forward. Get back with us. But Ellis remained rooted, unable to look away from Johnson's gaze. It was as if the truth lingered just behind the boyhood innocence he remembered. Fight the darkness, the words echoed in his mind, sparking something deep within him. A flicker of defiance ignited like a match in the blackness. The soldiers resumed their stance, weapons raised but wavering under the weight of doubt. Rivera took a bold step forward. If you have a message, now's the time. He hollered, his voice orating urgency. The specters responded, swirling around them like errant leaves caught in a whirlwind. Ellis inhaled deeply. We have to connect with them. He cried out, suddenly understanding. They're not lost to us. They're part of our fight. One by one, the soldiers let their rifles fall to their sides, uncertainty trickling away like sand through fingers. A profound sense of unity washed over them, inspired by their fallen brothers. The beast, sensing the shift, roared louder, its anger more visceral, primal. It charged again, but this time, their fear gave way to a boiling determination. They raised their arms, focused on Johnson's face, falling into a rhythm with the pulsating light surrounding Ellis. Together! Rivera shouted, urgency wrapping around his words. We draw strength from each other. Take their hands, feel their fight. Moreno felt an electric charge course through him as he extended a hand toward Ellis. His fingertips barely grazed Ellis's, and in that instant, a wave of memories washed over him, their shared laughter, the nights they had battled with oceans of uncertainty. Phantoms of his fallen comrades appeared, surrounding them, breathing life into the dying embers of hope. Fight for them, Hayes added, his voice breaking against the tide. He joined in, hands reaching toward their lost brothers, drawing strength from the flickering figures. With their little connection forged, a brilliant light exploded from the center, cascading outward and washing over the beast like a blanket. The creature faltered, muscles tensing as it reeled, unsure of how to move against the onslaught of memories and love pressing against it. As the soldiers took their positions, something incredible happened. The shadows began to recede, retreating from the brightness that enveloped them. The wails of the tormented souls shifted from anguished cries into a melodic chant that resonated deep within the marrow of their bones. Ellis, now glowing with an ethereal light, turned his gaze toward the monstrosity. "We're not afraid of you anymore," he declared, voice powerful, shaking the air with every word. "You don't own our stories." The beast, now visibly weakened, thrashed and kicked against the light. But as it writhed, its form began to shift, contorting as if caught in a twist of fate. The air crackled with tension, as the soldiers stepped forward in perfect unison, arms outstretched. "Light is stronger than darkness," Rivera shouted, giving voice to their collective resolve. "We're coming for you." But just as they surged toward the creature, a deafening clap echoed through the night, jolting them back. The ground split open, and the very fabric of their reality trembled, the connection between them and their fallen brothers faltering under the monstrous pressure. What had they awakened? What secret darkness lay beneath, waiting to be unleashed? And in that moment, with eyes wide and hearts pounding, they realized, the fight was far from over. The true horror might yet begin. "Together," was all Ellis could muster, as they stood on the edge of uncharted chaos, the ground beneath them seeming to swallow their certainty whole. What would they uncover next? And would they be strong enough to face it? The ground trembled ominously, cracking like old bones. Dust erupted, swirling into the night air like a ghostly fog. Ellis felt his heart rate spike as the roar of the beast morphed into a guttural growl, which reverberated deep within the earth, shaking their very foundation. The previously glowing specters wavered and flickered, their ethereal forms lost in the chaos. "Get back!" Moreno shouted, shoving his way through the haze. The soldiers instinctively retreated, the weight of despair creeping back into their chests. Each man felt the familiar, creeping dread, a phantasm of what was to come. Ellis stumbled, gazing down at the fissures that slithered like snakes across the ground, and his fear transformed into a fierce need to act. "Ellis! Focus!" Rivera snapped, urgency lacing his voice. Ellis breathed hard, forcing the fear back. He locked eyes with the shimmering images of his friends, the strength in their faces flickering like the light surrounding him. "We can't lose this connection," he cried out, trying to rally the soldiers. "Fight for them. Fight for each other." Suddenly, a blinding flash erupted from the crack in the earth, and out of the abyss emerged shapes that were nothing like the ghosts they had seen moments prior. Twisted figures writhed, their forms grotesque, mocking, and everything the soldiers feared. "Run!" shouted Hayes, panic clawing at his throat. But Ellis stood firm, determination igniting within him. Something shifted in the air, an electric promise woven into the very fabric of reality. They could still tap into that energy. "No! We can't just run!" Ellis shouted, gripping Rivera's arm tighter. "We have to fight!" As the mutilated shadows advanced, Rivera's jaw clenched. "What do we do?" The anger and frustration was palpable, brewing within the soldiers. They were outmatched, like ants before a mountain. Gathering courage, Ellis closed his eyes and reached deep within, recalling the laughter, the camaraderie, the memories of friendship that had once built them. "Think of your brothers. Focus on them." He breathed, drawing from the light growing inside him. The air crackled with renewed energy as hands reached out once more. One by one, soldiers began to reconnect with their lost comrades, the powerful presence of their memories rekindling their spirits. The shadows shrieked as if realizing the strength they faced. Then, like a choir of long-lost voices, they rose to meet the darkness. Ellis shouted with every ounce of spirit he could muster, "Together! We've got this!" Light erupted from their union, a blinding radiance that enveloped the soldiers. The grotesque creatures faltered, their twisted forms shrieking in anguish and ire as the soldiers advanced. The shadows distorted, revealing chaos between reality and another world. Yet, just as they felt they were gaining ground, the earth shook violently again, tearing at the seams of their collective strength. Ellis stumbled, the bright light dimming briefly. For a heartbeat, he felt the weight of history pressing down, 1,000 past traumas creeping at the edges of their resolve. "What is happening?" Moreno gasped, panic creeping back in. "No! Stay together!" Ellis yelled, feeling the pull of uncertainty dragging at him. In that moment, he caught sight of a monstrous shadow looming just behind the crack, taking the form of something monstrous and unnameable. "What did we awaken?" Rivera whispered, fear threading through his voice. In the shadows, something stirred an ancient evil, a truth too terrifying to fathom, one that might consume them whole. "What lies beneath us?" Ellis wondered aloud. With growing dread, they realized they were not merely battling the darkness, they were digging into an abyss that promised horrors yet unseen. As the ground roared, black tendrils shot forth, reaching for them. The connection flickered, threatening to sever. With desperation clawing at their throats, they prepared for the imminent onslaught. Would they find the strength to confront the very essence of their fears that threatened to drown them? Only time would tell if they could stand united or if the darkness would pull them under, shattering everything they held dear. The ground convulsed violently, as if the very core of the earth objected to their presence. It sent tremors rippling through the soldiers, rattling bones and spirit alike. Ellis felt a cold sweat bead at his temples, the vision of the monstrous shadow creeping closer, darkening the very air around them. "Brace yourselves!" he shouted, though doubt prickled at the back of his mind. He had rallied them before, but now, uncertainty gnawed at his gut. The collective heartbeat of his comrades quickened, pulses sinking in a shared fear. The black tendrils writhed and coiled, seeking flesh, searching for a vulnerable spot in their defense. The air was thick with a biting chill that sent shivers down Ellis's spine, making him feel like a target in the open. Beside him, Moreno steadied his weapon, eyes wide, and steeled himself for the chaos that was to come. "Do not let go of your memories," Rivera shouted, voice trembling yet fierce. Each soldier clutched onto the light they had rekindled, an electric spark coursing through them, radiating hope. But even the brightest flames flickered against the encroaching shadows. The first tendril lashed out, crashing against the earth as Ellis ducked to the side. Dirt flew, blinding him momentarily, but fear forced him to shake it off. In that instant, the dark creature's form shifted, twisting into a grotesque portrayal of one of their lost friends, eyes hollow yet eerily familiar. "Mark!" it whispered, voice dripping with malice. Ellis's heart sank. It was a cruel twist of the mind, a bait designed to trap them in despair. He felt the presence of sorrow washing over him, threatening to drown his resolve. "No! That's not him. You're not real!" Ellis roared, his own voice breaking. Moreno shot a glance at him, anguish etched on his face. "But what if it is? Focus on the light. We need to fight!" Ellis shouted, desperation coating his words, shaking off the shadows of doubt that threatened to envelop him. With renewed fervor, they pressed onward, channeling their memories into a singular force. From somewhere deep within, they remembered the laughter over campfires, the shared meals, the comrades who wouldn't let each other fall. Suddenly, it felt as if they weren't fighting alone. All those lost were with them, pressing against the shadows like a tide of raw emotion. The dark figures shrieked, backs arching as if in immense pain. Ellis rallied the men, "Push back. We can drive them away." The tendrils twisted, battling against the light. They pulsed, fighting for dominance, and the stench of ancient decay filled the air. Moreno gasped, thrusting himself forward, firing shots that lit the night with brief bursts of gunfire. Ellis, fueled by the rising sense of unity, cried out, "Let us go together." A force gathered, propelled by the memories they held dear. With every shared emotion, it transformed into a barrier of light that surged against the darkness, but then a deafening roar erupted from the abyss, drowning out their voices. The ground bucked and cracked wide open, revealing a swirling maelstrom of shadows and light, struggling against each other. Ellis realized this was no ordinary battle, they were caught in an ancient war, one that threatened to consume them whole. "Is this where we end?" Rivera shouted amidst the chaos, eyes wide as he leveled his weapon, uncertainty etched deeply on his face. "Not like this." Ellis pushed back, a fierce protectiveness overtaking him. But just as they poured their souls into the fight, a sudden shift in the air froze them in place. A moment of hitching breath. In that frozen instant, a voice whispered from the depths, ancient and heavy, echoing in their minds, "You've opened my door. What do you seek?" A question that pierced the very essence of who they were, a chilling invitation that could shatter everything. As the swirling darkness encroached, their spirits poised at the brink of despair, Ellis stood firm, heart hammering, praying for salvation but fearing what they might unleash. "What have we done?" he breathed, as answers loomed heavy in the shadows, promising a confrontation like no other. The whispers grew louder, vibrating through the very soil beneath their feet. Ellis felt the weight of those words pressing upon him, as if the ground was pulling him into the abyss. He wasn't just fighting for survival, he was entangled in a web that threatened to unravel their very existence. "Focus!" Ellis shouted, sweat dripping into his eyes. He could hear the frantic breaths of his comrades, the pounding of their hearts synchronized with the throbbing pulse of the earth. They were on the brink of some primal awakening, but doubt gnawed deeper into his mind. They weren't alone. As if summoned, the shadows shifted again, revealing more apparitions of their fallen brothers. Faces twisted in agony and sorrow emerged from the darkness, their mouths moving in silent screams. A choking horror gripped Ellis's throat. "This isn't real. You left us behind," he yelled into the writhing void. But the figures only drew closer, morphing into new forms, birthing memories he wished to keep buried. Suddenly, Moreno stumbled, dropping his weapon. "Ellis! It's pulling me in." His eyes widened, terror eclipsing any hope he had left. The shadows thickened, tendrils wrapping around Moreno's legs. Ellis lunged forward, but the earth split beneath him, roots of darkness clawing at his ankles, threatening to drag him into their grasp. "Hold on!" Ellis bellowed, feeling the tug of despair threatening to swallow him whole. He reached for Moreno's hand, their fingers barely touching. The bond of life flickered between them, a spark against the encroaching darkness. "Remember who you are, Moreno," Ellis shouted, slipping into memories they once shared, campfire stories, laughter, their moments of triumph. "This isn't the end." Moreno's face flickered with recognition, and he gripped Ellis's hand tightly. I don't want to forget," he cried, pulling back with a renewed strength. The shadows recoiled, shrieking in rage as if they feared their bond. They surged upward, a beacon of hope rising against the void. With each shared memory, the tendrils retracted, disconnecting from Moreno. But the shadows felt their resolve, and the ancient voice rose again, rumbling through the chaos. "You defy me? You cannot escape your fates. Not without a fight." Ellis roared, grip tightening around Moreno. He could sense the spirits rallying around them, a fierce army of past comrades, mustering a force the darkness had never seen before. "Together, we stand. Together we fight." The air charged around them, vibrating with raw energy as the light grew brighter, exuding warmth in sharp contrast to the chill that crept through the night. Shadows writhed, howling against the onslaught of unity. A surge of empowerment radiated from their hearts, sparks igniting the remaining hope within the band of soldiers. "Push! Now!" Ellis screamed, eyes ablaze with determination. The energy built, a swirling vortex around them, sweeping back the shadows. Feet planted firm, they unleashed a tumultuous wave of memories, laughter resonating like a war cry to meet the paralyzing darkness head-on, but just as they began to drive back the shadows, the earth convulsed again, sending shockwaves through their formation. A spine-chilling laughter punctuated the chaos. The ancient presence roared with fury and amusement. "You think this is the end of your horror? I have many doors yet to open." Panic washed over Ellis. What more could there be? And in that terrifying moment, he found himself questioning, were they fighting to save their memories or to awaken something far worse from the abyss? Shadows enveloped them again, and he knew they hadn't seen the last of this malevolent force. In that heart-stopping moment, everything teetered on a knife's edge, and Ellis realized that salvation could be just as horrifying as despair. What would come next from this nightmare, and could they handle it? The ground trembled violently, a warning shot that sent shockwaves through Ellis's body. He was no longer just battling the shadows, but now the earth itself seemed to align with the darkness. The air thickened, saturated with despair and anxiety, as if the very essence of their world was bleeding into the abyss. "Stay together!" he yelled, his voice a desperate plea slicing through the cacophony. He turned to Moreno, whose eyes were glazed with fear, reflecting the chaos around them. "We need to remember why we're here." But before Moreno could respond, the shadows lunged at them with a will of their own, grasping hands reaching out like wickedly curved claws. Ellis lashed out instinctively, kicking at the dark mass creeping closer. But no matter how hard he fought, the shadows only seemed to multiply, stretching like parasites feeding on their collective terror. "Ellis, they're showing me things," Moreno gasped, clutching his head. Ellis could see anguish flood his friend's face, twisting it into a mask of horror. "Memories I'd forgotten. Traumas I can't bear them." His voice choked and trembled, tearing through Ellis's resolve like glass shattering against stone. The whispers rose again, a chorus rising in a crescendo, drowning out any rational thought. "What you fear is what you are," they hissed, intertwining with their thoughts, igniting memories long buried. Ellis felt his own mind slipping into darkness, visions of past missions, the faces of comrades lost, laughter turning to screams. "Wake up, Moreno! Fight it!" Ellis screamed, trying to wrestle his friend's mind back from the haunting grasp of the apparitions. Moreno's breath hitched. "I see them, Ellis. The ones we failed. They want me to join them." The desperation nearly shattered the clarity that Ellis tried to hold on to. The shadows seemed emboldened by Moreno's declaration, savagely swirling around them like a dark tempest. "No!" Ellis recoiled, pure adrenaline coursing through him. "You are not them. Remember us. Remember our victories." He pulled Moreno closer. "Our goals, our lives. We fight for those still here." In that moment, an electrifying spark ignited in Moreno's eyes, grounding him in their shared reality. The atmosphere shifted, a flicker of hope piercing the darkness as Moreno shook off his tormenting visions. Together, he whispered, a mantra against the storm now raging around them. Ellis felt the gravity of Moreno's words as if they echoed from the very roots of their battle. "Together!" he shouted, feeling the strength of not just memories but of bonds forged in hardship and resilience. They were not alone, all those who had fought before were with them, rallying as one in the depths of despair. The shadows roared in an anguished fury, sensing the tides shifting, but the fraternity of their spirits surged like a wave crashing against a cliff. The energy peaked, illuminating their surroundings as if blasting a light into the heart of doom. "Now!" Ellis cried, feeling an ancient power swell among them. It was real life against death, light against darkness. But even as they pushed back, shadows howled, ripping through space and time. The earth convulsed again, the ancient voice rumbling like a thunderstorm. "What lies in waiting is far worse than mere memories. Your struggle has only begun." Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the atmosphere pulsed violently, and everything around them twisted into a storm of chaos. In that moment of unyielding darkness, Ellis felt a shiver crawl down his spine. If this was just the beginning, what horrors lay in wait? As the chaotic shadows began to swirl into a vortex around them, Ellis couldn't shake the feeling that escape might not be the answer. The real truth was lurking just beyond their perception, waiting for the opportune moment to strike. What would emerge from the depths of that ravenous void, and how were they supposed to confront the forgotten terrors that had now awoken? As the darkness roared, swirling around them, Ellis felt time shift. The shadows pulsed, desperate and hungry, as if they sensed the resolve of the soldiers. They fought back with everything they had, fueled by memories and a shared purpose that wove them together like a lifeline. "Stay close!" Ellis shouted, feeling the weight of their pasts bearing down on them. He caught a glimpse of Moreno and the others, their faces twisted with determination, fear, and defiance. The connection had strengthened. They would not let the shadows consume them. Then, in an instant, the shadows recoiled, releasing a deafening howl that froze the air around them. Ellis looked toward the fissure in the ground, where an effervescent light began to seep in, illuminating the darkness with blinding clarity. The soldiers instinctively took a step back, shielding their eyes, but their hearts raced with newfound hope. "What is that?" Moreno murmured, peering into the brilliance unfolding before them. "Whatever it is, we need to reach for it," Ellis cried, fist clenched. "That light, it's our way out." With a united front, they surged toward the light, trusting their instincts to pull them free from the nightmare. The tendrils of darkness hissed angrily, twisting and writhing to reclaim their prey, but the light pushed back, cutting through the shadows like a hot knife through butter. "Keep moving. We can't let them stop us," Rivera yelled, leading the charge. The energy grew potent, each step fueling their resolve. The crack widened, revealing an exit shimmering like hope itself, but as they approached, the surrounding chaos crescendoed into a maelstrom, the voices beckoning them to halt. "You cannot leave us." It was a relentless chorus of lost souls clawing for attention, each shout laced with sorrow. "You cannot forget." Ellis felt the tug of memory rip through him, the echoes of teammates who had fought alongside them, faces he pledged never to forget. The warmth of lost camaraderie vibrated with the light, intertwining their fractured spirits. It was a reminder this journey did not just belong to them, it belonged to every soul whose fight was wrapped in their own. "Don't let them pull you back. They're trying to weaken us," Hayes shouted, struggling to stay grounded amidst the cacophony. Ellis locked eyes with Moreno, their fear morphing into will. "Remember why we're fighting. For them, for us, for all those who sacrificed." As the soldiers melded together, their collective pasts flickered to life in flashes of brilliant hues, pulsing in tandem with the incoming light. They felt their losses, but amidst that pain, they found their hearts beating as one, unbreakable, unyielding. "Now!" Rivera roared. And with a final surge, they lunged toward the glowing exit, hands outstretched, hearts wide open. The light engulfed them, a wave of warmth washing over their bodies, dispelling any lingering darkness that sought to ensnare them. The shadows howled in a last desperate breath, their furious clamoring washed away by the illumination that wrapped around the soldiers like a mother's embrace. The world warped and twisted, but as the darkness receded, the echo of their collective cries morphed into something different, a harmony in a heartbeat. They were propelled into brilliance, a kaleidoscope of light, hope, and remembrance flowing through them. The memories weren't haunting anymore, they were a lifeline. And then, suddenly, silence. Ellis blinked, feeling weightless. The dark shadows washed away, leaving behind an ethereal landscape glimmering with possibilities. They stood atop a hill bathed in sunlight. Warm air filled their lungs, refreshing and invigorating. "What just happened?" Moreno breathed, disbelief swirling in his voice. "I think we transcended," Ellis replied, looking at the faces of his brothers, the light reflecting in their eyes. Each man wore remnants of grief, but deeper than that, a new purpose was born. Rivera nodded slowly, taking in the expansive view. "This is where we reclaim our stories. Together, we honor what we've lost. But we also choose to embrace what lies ahead." Ellis raised his chin, the horizon stretching before them, a new journey waiting. He couldn't change the past, but he could make a promise to keep those memories alive. Let us march forward. For them, and for us. We keep fighting, together. They stepped forward, one foot in front of the other, leaving behind not just the darkness but hopefully making space for newfound light. As they descended the hill, a powerful gust of wind enveloped them, whispering secrets of futures yet to unfold. A fresh start awaited, shimmering in the distance, and with every breath, they exhaled their aches, charging forward as brothers, forever bound by their memories and fortified by their decision to face whatever lay ahead. And so, they walked on. Now that you've experienced this gripping conclusion, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, and flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support makes all the difference.